Hey folks, Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands, ancestrylands.com. Appreciate y'all. Forgot to turn off my daggone brakes. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this video as we get right into it. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here rocking with me, and you're rocking with the best. Going to talk to you all about something as this world gets harder and gets tougher. You're going to experience pain. You've already experienced pain because you've been given pain by those before you who never got over their pain, who never got over their demons, the things that caused them to pass on that hurt and pain to you. I was having a conversation with a coworker last night talking about our presentation. When I work around patients, I have a very happy attitude, a very calming presence. And the reason is I'm one, sure within myself. I'm at peace within myself. I know who I am and I know pretty much what my demons are and I know how they take hold of me. Now, am I perfect? Absolutely not. Not perfect by a long shot, but a lot of the things that we present to people, and I'll give you the situation shortly. A lot of the ways that we present to people, we don't just have our pain, we walk with our pain. We carry our pain. We carry our history, our curses, all that stuff we wear with us like a life vest that's bright and people can see it. Patients can see it. Children can see it. And it's not until sometimes you're in the right place at the right moment at the right time where you're able to hear a person tell you something that you've been told many a times. And many times where you need to hear it is the time you need to hear it the most. And I'll give you the situation a little bit. The person I talk to that I work with, they sometimes when you're a nurse or you're any person that has to take care of people who are sick, people are not at their best, they're at their worst. When I'm not feeling well, I'm not the most happiest person in the planet. I'm definitely not the most agreeable person. I'm very irritable and things like that. So a lot of times people expect you to have the patience of Jesus, which is very impossible. That's a cool looking Cybertruck. Look at that. That red one about to pass right there. That was a cool looking Cybertruck. They expect you to have the patience of Gandhi, the temperament of Jesus, and the ability to experience pain or suffering while you're sick without being nasty or you're not at your best. That's what being sick is all about. And as a person who is a nurse who's done pediatric home care, I mean, the list goes on. I worked at Phoenix Children's Hospital. I worked at Kaiser Hospital. I worked for DaVita doing that. People are not going to be their best. They're not going to treat you their best. Being a healthcare professional is a thankless job. Many times you get thanked, but it's only after you've been treated bad that you've been thanked. And it really is a true customer service job. I told the person, I said, you got to really change your attitude because they didn't come from a medical background. And I said that, you can catch more bees with honey than you can with vinegar. And I said, sweetie, you're piss and vinegar. And it's just every time that someone upsets you, you allow yourself to become emotionally motivated, emotionally invested in the negativity at that time. And it's so rapid that I noticed it that I had to tell her, I said, it's like you're pissing vinegar all the time. Why do you let people get you so riled up? And she came to me and asked me about, how do you find that peace? How do I find that tranquility, that ability to be where sometimes people want only female patients, but they'll take me as a male nurse? And what energy do I have that I give off? And I say, because I put myself in a position of understanding that healthcare is probably 80 to 90% hospitality. It really is. Because you're taking care of people, which means that you are in a customer service position. The only difference between a hotel and a hospital is you have doctors, they do surgeries, they give medications in the form of drugs, and you have, there's many things that relate to a hospital and a hotel. But if you understand that you're in a customer service job in an industry that is primarily customer service, layer with medicine and all these other things that are life threatening, you put yourself you are in the service of people and pretty much their happiness, but at a time where they're at their worst. And what happened was a moment of internal inflection, where she was able to look inside and see that what's coming out, which I talk to everybody about, is this internal pain that we wear. And she talked about, presenting like a woman of color and those other things. And I said, yeah, that's true. But a lot of times we carry our pain with us. I got people in my family that have sat there and told me to my face that they're okay with not being loved, despite me loving that person very much, despite them having people in their family that love and adore them, even through their worst. They have been so unloved by the people that came before them that they cannot love forward because they miss love in their past. We're talking about many people that when you enter relationships, you're bringing all types of trauma, toxicity, things that have been done for you, abuse, all these things like that, which you've never fully healed from. And part of the healing comes from not just moving on from the problems and the pain, it comes from you identifying the problems and the pain. I started to tell her the same thing that I'm going to tell you all. The one thing about the demons that reside in all of us, and when I say demons, I'm just talking about the negative things that make us traumatized, the negative things that make us toxic. No one's perfect, but there are things that we do that are destructive that we have no control over because we have not learned to identify those things. It is very apparent and pertinent for you. In order to heal, you have to first identify the trauma that you're going through and how it's manifested itself within you. You have to understand your triggers. Now, I have lost a child in my younger years. I have been through grief counseling. I've been through, and many people in my family know this story about me losing a child in my past. The weight of that, you just try to carry on. The weight, you try to just go through life. You're going to be strong. You're just going to get through it. And it wasn't until I was in the hospital, at the children's hospital, that a baby almost succumbed to a critical situation, a respiratory situation, that it brought out that anxiety and it finally came to a head. And it wasn't until a manager said, Phil, I need you to go to therapy. And I said, no. And she said, well, it's that or your job. And I went to what essentially was not therapy because I had a mental health issue. I was suffering from grief. I was. And my wife knows about this. My children know about me losing. That has never left me. That feeling, that loss. My parents know about it. Close friends and family know about it. That's never left me, that trauma. And I'm saying that because I didn't address it at the time. I never addressed it. In my culture, you don't go to therapy. You don't get no therapy. You crazy, you go to therapy. And I didn't heal from it. Only until I went to therapy did I address what was going on and what was triggering me. I finally understood myself. And then I went to therapy afterwards to address what was the trauma that I learned from growing up. We all have hardships in our childhood. And it took me understanding that my internal desire to want more than to be always the sum of my traumas. When I say that, I want you to hear me. You need to stop looking that you are the sum of your trauma and actually be the product of your victory, of your success in life. And I told the girl the same thing. I said, we are too worried about carrying our pain with us instead of dropping the weight to run towards our happiness. And she was like profoundly shocked by that statement. We carry this weight. We carry the weight of our parents, how they treated us, how this, and that. We sometimes want to always identify what we do better than our parents, and we don't want to be like our parents. We don't want to be like this person. We don't want to be like this person that left us. And we can't see our happiness because we are too focused on our pain. We're too focused, and that happens in every aspect of your life. There are people too worried about failing that they can't get to their success. We're always focused on the negative because we've been trained to carry negative. It's generational at times. Now, is it to say that I'm perfect? No. Sometimes I suffer from it too. But I care more about myself and becoming this Phil Davis rather than being a Phil Davis plagued by the traumas of my past. And you got to let that pain go. Now, how do you do that? You say, Phil, this all sounds good and great. How did you do it? First, I had to address my pain. Not by confronting the people who caused it, but by looking at myself and identifying that this is something that I have a darkness within me that I need to face and confront. How I did that was by staring in a mirror and looking at myself. Really taking a look in the mirror and looking at myself in my reflection to wait for me to see and shine a light on my darkness. And this is what happens when you don't do that. You tend to lose control when your darkness takes over, when your vices take over. These are habits of negativity that are formed within you that have cues. When you get upset, you can lose control. Then that can change your whole attitude. It can change the way you interact with people who are not the person that is pissing you off or making you upset at the time. It can destroy a relationship in one blink and has nothing to do with your relationship because the problem is lateral to you in that situation. You're just being triggered. And it happens all the time. Many people do not know that this is happening because it has been a habit. The power of habit, even in negativity, can be powerful, just like you having a diet and abstaining from junk food. But when you have cues, when you have triggers that cue you into negative behavior, it becomes almost instinctual that you'll blow up, that you'll become negative for the rest of the day. That'll eat away at you because you had a hard day at work and you'll come home and take it out on your family members, your children, your spouse, your girlfriend. It may even force you to go back into doing some illicit drugs or something else like that because you're medicating your pain. And that is because you've had triggers or cues that told you every time I experience this, the soothing is I run towards that, to this liquor, to this drug, to this vice that I have, to this negative thing that keeps me in this cycle of toxicity. And then what happens is you end up having children or you having a relationship, and the relationship suffers from the toxicity because you defend the toxicity because this is your natural habit. The darkness is designed to make you defend it. I told her the story about, if you've ever watched Lord of the Rings, the last Lord of the Rings, I believe that's Return of the King. If you haven't watched it, it's a great thing to kind of look at as a case study for the Golem. His name's Golem, but the character that was guiding Frodo and Samwise through the mountain to the passageway to throw the ring. I watch movies, so I watch movies with my kids, so I know Lord of the Rings. And the thing about it is he had two personalities. He had a good side that he wanted to help. He was very caring for Frodo and Samwise. And there was another side where he wanted to do great harm. And you would see him talk to himself in the water, in a reflection. And the other side was telling him all the negative things to do to basically get back the ring, his desire, his greed. And the ring had always brought out the most negative things from the Golem, who actually was a hobbit before in previous movies, if you watch it. And the ring turned him into all the nasty things. The ring was the cue. When he had the ring, it brought out all the negative things from greed to lust, desire, everything to hoard and conserve the ring to the point where he shut himself off from all of society. He couldn't operate without having that ring on, and the ring twisted his mind to make him do things that were outside of, normal character. And the same thing I'm identifying right now by saying that, and don't lose me here, is that cue, the desire for the ring, when he lost the ring, he went absolutely crazy to try to find that ring, to the point that he hunted down Frodo to find out he had the ring, even though the ring was lost a whole generation before. This happened like in the first movie or the second movie, and by the fifth or sixth movie, we're just finding out now he found the ring. That's how long he was hunting for this ring to get the thing that he desired most, which brought out not the positive, but the most negative traits that he would ever be. And it was all because of his desire, the negativity that he kept feeding into the cue that was the ring. And the same thing can happen to us in life, is that we have these cues, these habit-forming things that happen because we're conditioned at a young age that this is our toxic response to inputs that we have in our environment. And our habits, the cues, form habits that end up becoming negative habits, just the same way that a person is cued. They have a get up, they wake up, go to the gym every morning. They go to the gym, then they feel better. So what do they start doing? The habit starts to form. The cue is I go to the gym, then the outcome is I get better, I feel better. So the desire, the dopamine hit comes from, hey, I want to feel this way and I want more of it and I like it, so I'm going to keep doing it. Well, the same thing happens when you do something negative. You get the anger hit, you feel vindicated, you got the attitude, then you go take it out. And it becomes a negative forming habit that happens within all of us. And what happens worse is that the second we try to go and identify it, what do? Everyone tries to move past it. You ever have a person that tells you an alcoholic, you want to tell them they're alcoholic? What do? Deny they have a problem. I've got it in control. I could quit anytime. The first thing your dark desires do is tell you that you don't have a dark desire. They try to tell you to avoid the dark desire, that it doesn't exist. You have control. You don't need to worry about it. Everything to do to get you away from noticing that desire is apparent and is ever present. That's what desire is designed to do. Darkness is designed to stay dark, to stay hidden. It is not designed to be brought out into the light. So the first thing you must do is identify the darkness by shining a light on your bad behaviors. It is not tearing yourself down. It is identifying that you have these dark desires and confronting them, learning to live with them. One of the biggest problems I had being a Christian was that every time you have a dark desire, every time you have a negative thing, it's like you're going to hell. There is no overcoming a dark desire other than to abstain from the dark desire, to not deal with it, not to learn how to control or master it. You don't even address it half the times. What you're taught to do is just ignore it, avoid it, pretend it doesn't exist. What you got to do is cut off your whole hand and then throw it into the fire. That's what they said before. One of Jesus' teaching, better to throw your whole hand in the fire than your whole body go into a fire. But it doesn't tell you how to deal with desire on a grand scale, on a grand level, because all you're taught is that you just got to stay away from sin. Well, sin is everywhere. What about your negative forming habits that are queued up every time you have a bad interaction that causes you to act in a negative way? You're not evil for acting negatively. Look at people in the ghetto. They're brought up in an environment where violence and drugs and things like that and economic depression are everyday ever present. So what do you want them to do? Think, grow rich, read some books, and all of a sudden supposed to get their mind elevated? No. The condition is negative, violence, low economic things. So how can a person think bright unless you always see it. It's always the few that are able to take themselves out of that because they have a different mindset. But that's not the many, because again, much times that's not you can't replicate it. You cannot replicate that. And the reason being is that the cues are not taught to elicit good, productive habits. I got to reverse. This is one of the times where I actually have to take my son and one of his friends where we do parenting carpool to violin to school early. And actually, I want to see my daughter. She'll be getting out soon to go to school. But that's one of the things I'm talking about, is that we have these negative habits that are forming and we expect them to change. But again, we're being cued to respond negatively. So I say to you all again, one of the things you have to do is shine a light on that darkness to identify it. Spend time understanding your triggers. Spend time understanding why you got upset, reviewing it. You can't get out of debt until you start looking at debt. You can't address a gambling problem. And what do people do? They go into groups. They talk about their gambling problems. They talk about their alcoholism. You hear other stories about people who are alcoholics and things like that. Now, again, I'm just saying this as a reference of an example of how people deal with and overcome things that are so devastating to not only themselves, their health, but the people around them. And they go through that by, one, the process of identifying the problem, by going to AA. Do you need to do that? No, I'm not saying that. I'm not a therapist, but I'm just saying what we're talking about is the process of identifying the problem. When you identify the problem and you explore the problem, you go to discover the problem, what makes you drink, what makes you do this, what makes you do that. Hold on. Hey, what's up, baby? How are you? My daughter. What's up? How are you, buddy? All right, you doing good? I'm actually recording a video right now. Oh, cool. All right, have a good day, baby. All right, I love you. Okay. All right, have a good one. All right. Daughter's going to school. And again, I could put negative habits into her. I could take my pain and push that right onto her. Don't do this because of that. I could take my fears and limitation and put that onto my daughter. And what would it serve her other than to inherit my curses? But again, when you go, like I'm going back to the point, was that you go and identify your problems, you go and discover your problems, you get angry, you get upset, reanalyze in your mind what caused you to be that way, why you reacted that way. And if you can't, write down how it looks, play it over in your mind, being the other person. Experience what you sound like and it seem like outside of your body. Because again, one of the bigger problems is that we never perceive ourselves like other people perceive us. We just perceive it from being, I don't want to say this, but it's like kind of, you're the victim, you're the person that was done wrong, and you went to justify by attacking the other person. Well, victimhood mentality is a cue, that is a habit that is formed from you never taking accountability either. Does it mean that taking accountability? No, because you don't have to agree with your assessment. Hell, there are doctors who disagree with a doctor. But my point in saying that is that what you're doing is sitting here and saying, okay, hey, I'm going to go back and analyze. Could I have done that better? Should I have done that better? What caused me to act that way? What caused me to respond that way? Was the action, was the action or the reaction worth the action that I experienced? And that's when I told her, put yourself in the understanding that you're in a hospital, your people are sick. You're never going to see them at their best. If you understand that and you've been sick before, then you got to be more patient with a person who is going through something that you're not experiencing. You don't understand their pain, their situation, or anything else. When you operate from that point and take yourself out of it, take you out of the equation and try to be a person that can service another person, then you'll look at your reactions and say, why am I putting so much energy into this situation that literally I go home at the end of the day? And you'll see yourself invested in these micro moments where they really have no big meaning into your life. Now, what could happen from all of that is you overreact and you lose your job. You overreact and you say something, the patient complains. Now you're talking to the manager. Now you're defending your position over your response instead of being in control of your response. Because you have not controlled your cues, you have not identified the habits, the negative habits that they've had, and you haven't learned to understand your darkness, the things that are driving you to make these decisions to respond that way. And you do that by identifying the habits that you have, the toxicity, but you got to learn the cues first. Because once you identify the cues, you can start dealing with the habit. You'll start saying, oh, I know this. I'm about to respond this way. I'm going to get this way. And you start to understand yourself even more. I'm going to cut that short for you all right now. But again, Phil Davis, Ancestry Lands. Don't forget my book, Getting Dollars from Dirt. It's a great way to support me, a great way to learn for yourself. Getting Dollars from Dirt, A Beginner's Guide to Vacant Land Investing is on Amazon. The link will be in the description section of the video below. I hope that you've been educated, enlightened, and entertained. Look at this. Here's a kid right here running up the hill. He's going to be late for the bus. And again, his cue is that whatever the cue is, he's always running late because he has not changed the cue on how to be early, right? And I say that all the time. But again, get my book, Getting Dollars from Dirt, A Beginner's Guide to Vacant Land Investing. It's available on Amazon. Good way to support your boy and a good way to get yourself educated as well. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And I hope you've been entertained. And I will see you in the next one. Until then, watch all the videos that'll be showing up here. Peace.